And then they said, come back tonight for the reception. And I said, well, I never heard of nothing like that. Have the reception now. We'll eat the cake and go on. And then a funeral. You can come and see the body in the morning, then come back that night, we'll have a funeral. I thought, man, do it all at once. So yesterday, we were at a wedding, and they had split it up like that, and then they changed it and didn't split it up. And I said, man, it seems like we're wasting a lot of time here. That don't happen down here. You walk in, fire the engine up, let's go. So I'm good with that. I like doing things that way. I want to talk to you this morning about something that I think is urgent, and it doesn't matter where you're at or who you're talking to. The urgency doesn't matter the size of the congregation. Everybody, there are no big I's and little U's in the Church of Jesus Christ. There are none. One person is as important as anybody else with God. All of these ideas of critiquing people and this one being here and this one being here and this one, that didn't come from the Bible. There's no skin reference in the Bible. There's no culture in a particular culture. We shouldn't have 1,000 different cultures in America. We're Americans. So that's our culture. And if you're a Christian, then you have the Christian culture. Instead of some religious orthodoxy that they came up with that they think we should use. I disagree with all of that. I remember when I first came to God, and that's been nearly 55 years ago. And I'd take a trip somewhere, and in those days, here, I never dreamed I'd be saying in those days. But in those days, you had no telephones except the ones at home. And anybody ever heard of a party line? Yeah. Young people nowadays, I had a guy call me, a pastor, he said, man, I got kids out there in my wife's old car. She drove an old car, real old. He said they're driving. He said they've been out there for 30 minutes trying to hook their phones up to her radio. That's progress, I guess. But I remember we would go somewhere, and we had to use a map that was folded up. Now, if you were rich, you had an atlas. But we just have a map. You could usually get them free at a Chamber of Commerce or somewhere like that. If not, they cost you $0.25. And you unfold that street map, and you'd have to find them little bitty streets, and that's how you got where you were going. We didn't have GPS. We didn't have none of that stuff. So we have all this modern technology now, and we think we really know something because we've got this technology. But if one of our enemies were able to touch our grid, that grid is what makes America function. And every country in the nation, or every country in the world, is on some sort of a grid. So if they were able to get to our grid and somehow shut it down, it would shut down this whole country. Your cars, if you're driving newer cars, those cars would not run if that grid were going because the computer couldn't operate. You see how vulnerable we are? And we think we know so much when really we know so little. We now know less than what we used to because 95% of the people in the world or in our country have no idea what all these scientists and these people that are pushing all the buttons are doing. United States of America, 334 million people, all being held captive by 545 people in Washington. 400 congressmen, 100 senators, 9 justices of the Supreme Court, a president. Most all of them are bad. There may be a couple that are not. You know, it doesn't matter what party they come from. They all, it's the same old thing. How do you know when they're lying? Their lips move. They get together. They put together plans outside the public eye. And that they're in bed together. That's exactly right. They make laws that benefit them, not you. They're not looking out for your welfare. They're looking out for their welfare in their pocketbook. And thus they have lobbyists. And so that's what our country is. And then we were told in 2020, they said, stop trusting in everything else and trust in science. Remember that? You have to trust in science with this. Science is going to tell us what to do with COVID. Science is going to tell us how to survive. Boy, they did a good job, didn't they? They did a real good job. They created everything imaginable and told us this is good for you. Put this in your body. This is good for you. And no, we haven't tested it. There's nobody. We don't really know. We hadn't had time to test it. You took the polio vaccine. Take this vaccine. Yeah, they tested that polio vaccine for 10 years. They just pulled this stuff wherever they got it. They pulled it out somewhere and said, hey, take this. And then, 5 years later, you've got 3 ears. It took a while for that one to soak in right there. Does that even make sense to us? So what should have happened when they stood up and made such a bold proclamation? Trust science, drop everything else. And whatever science recommends, they know what's best. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something. They that are led by the Spirit are the sons of God. Wherever the Spirit leads us, that's the direction we want to take. I don't want to follow science because science is a failure. The word science is actually in the King James Bible. It's mentioned one time. Paul says science, falsely so-called. That's how the scripture reads. Science, falsely so-called. They tell you you know how many stars there are out there in our universe? No, neither do you. Oh, no. We've honed in on it. And we have found that there are 40 sextillion stars in the universe. Wow, I feel better already. So first time I ever read that was about 40 years ago. And we didn't have a computer. I couldn't real quickly say, hey, Siri, find sextillion. And she'd come right back. Oh, here it is. There's a dance tonight. See how reliable this stuff is? There's a sexual dance tonight at the Gavin Hall. Anybody going? So we didn't have all that. You know what I did? I went to the library and I got a book that had been there a long time, and I read that book about what a sextillion was. And I found out that 40 sextillion was a 40 with 21 zeros after it. That's how they can't count that far. But they said there's 40 sextillion stars out there in that universe. And then they came back and said, if we gave each one of them a name, and we only used 3 letters so that we could keep it simple, stupid, KISS. That's what KISS means. Keep it simple, stupid. And so, for people that have an ego, that's real good. Do you know what an ego is? Ego is the sedative that eases the pain of stupidity. So they said if we put and gave each star a 3-letter name, it would take 80 quadrillion books to contain all the names. So back to the book. Quadrillion. 80 with 15 zeros after it. We lost 6 zeros. And that's the books it would take to contain the name. And if we had that, now that just, don't you feel better already knowing that? That there's 80 sextillion stars out there, and if we named them all, they'd have 80 quadrillion books full of names that you couldn't read in 80 quadrillion lifetimes. Nor could they. So what they're really telling you when they tell you some of this stuff sometime, when you go to the doctor and you say, man, I'm really sick. Well, what's wrong with you? That's why I came here. If I knew what was wrong with me, I wouldn't need to come to you. That's why they call it doctor's business a practice. It's a practice. It's not the real show. They're practicing on it. And I'm not against doctors. However, I think the number 2 cause of death in the United States is medical errors. Boy, I got it down today, I'm telling you. So I look at all of this stuff, and I try to figure out what's going on. 80 quadrillion books, 40 sextillion stars. So I turned over to the book of Job and the book of Psalms, and the Bible said he has numbered and named every star out there. God has numbered and named every star out there. I look at that and I say, God, all at once, this ain't nearly as big as what they're making it out to be. Because if you got that all figured out and you've got that all taken care of, I'm not going to follow science falsely so-called. I'm going to grab hold of that black back book and say, hey, God, I'll follow your word. Let your word be a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Help me to study to show myself approved, a workman unto God that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. That's what I want to do. I want to follow this. Because this has never led me astray. It led me to an altar. When my daughter was 2 years old and had polio, it was this book that healed her in 5 minutes. When I had rheumatoid arthritis and was crippled, it was that book that healed me in 5 minutes. It was that book that I saw raise dead people. It was this book that raised 12 children with encephalitis, immediately healed before they could get them to the hospital. I did that with that book. Not with science. Science has its place. I'm glad they put somebody on the moon. Yippee! Aren't you? I mean, aren't you glad to see them saying, one giant step for mankind? Yeah, what about us? You're putting people on the moon. You're flying all this stuff all over the world. You got that guy with Tesla's got his own satellite company and down in Texas done built a launching pad out there in the middle of nowhere. They are so intelligent, so smart. Paul said, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. But the Bible said we should be fools. Paul said, I'm a fool for Christ's sake. So the energy those fools can dedicate to a quadrillion book or to a sextillion stars or to who they're going to put on the moon, I'd like to see a church take that same energy and put it into the book of God and into the hand of God and the mind of God and the will of God and see what would happen if we turned everything over to Jesus Christ. Put everything in. Here I am, Lord. I surrender today all of my control to the outcome of any situation. I trust you, God. My hope is in you. What if we applied that same energy? That's what you're supposed to do. You can't be half-hearted with God. People that say, well, you know, I try to go at least twice a month. If you're not all in for God, you're all out. Right. You married? Been married? Yeah. Had children? Yeah. Did your wife ever come up to you and say, honey, I got news for you. Tell them we'll be done just a little bit. I'm a little pregnant. Well, how much? Just a little. No. You either is or you ain't. With God, there's no almost. You're either in or you're out. Remember that old song, Why Not Take All of Me? That's God singing to us. Why not take all of me? If you get all of me, you won't need nothing else. If you've got me, if I'm for you, nobody can be against you. You can't lose with the stuff I use. Get hold of me. Walk in my precepts and my footsteps. Do what I want you to do. Follow me. Follow me. And that's where the church has failed. We have not done that. I asked him to put something on the screen for me if he can put it on there. I don't know if he can or not. I was here. I've been here since then, but back in 2020, I came here, and it was during the beginning of the pandemic. You say, you're making fun of them. What should I do? Congratulate them? They all came together. I don't know who was involved in it, the Chinese, the Russians, the Koreans, the Americans, everybody. All these people seem to know about this, and they created a virus, built a virus. And it's not an organic virus. It's a synthetic virus. That's why they had no way to deal with it. They couldn't figure out how, because it was synthetic. That means it was made with man's hands. Are you ready for this? Oh, boy, I'm going to tell you, I feel good this morning. What time is it, 11:25? 10:25. So we got about 30 minutes? About 30 minutes. Okay, fasten your seatbelts. Take the chip off your shoulder and lay it on the side of the chair where you're at. And if you want to put it back on when we leave, well, you can just reach down and pick it back up. Were you able to get that on the screen? Is there somebody up there? You can't do it? It what? She's working on it. There we come. What? That ain't mine. We're in the twilight zone, folks. This is what science gets us. If I had me a placard and some crayons, we wouldn't be having this trouble. And it's not her fault, so we're not making fun of her. I think that's a her up there. I hope it is. You have to ask nowadays. Yeah. You got to be sure. Hi, my name is Sam. So is my name. Really? Yeah. Well, you look like you might be a woman. What? There's no such thing. There's no she's and he's. We're all something. And we haven't decided what. But when we know, we'll let you know. In the meantime, folks, we're insane. That's what we are. You can be able to find it. If you can't do it, it's okay. It's got 4 words on it. Are you trying to type those words? Or what? It's got 4 words on this piece of paper. Have you still got the little piece of paper up there? There, good. It's not your fault. It's science. Drop that piece of paper off there, can you? Off the top. Can you throw it down here to me? I'm very unorthodox. I guess y'all have noticed that. There it is. Now, here's this piece of paper that I wrote back in 2020. And I came here during the beginning of the year, and I actually preached something here that many of you have probably forgot, and I'm used to that. I'm easy to forget. I just am. I guess the better preachers are not. But for me, I'm like that old Jim Reeves country song, am I that easy to forget? I preached about don't go back to January. Does anybody remember that? I rest my case. I said, we want everything to go back to normal, as we called it, and get all this mess. We took it very lightly. We had one case of COVID-19 at that time. And everybody, they were telling us, boy, we got bad stuff coming. Funny how they could predict how many people were going to get it. And not only that, they could tell you where it was going to happen. Ooh. Yes, there's going to be an outbreak in such and such place. Yeah. But we have no idea what's going on. Yeah. Right. I believe you. I believe you. And if you've got oceanfront property in Phoenix, I'll buy that too. So I said that God, I like that. That's all right. That's all right. This is where the audience can participate. In early 2020, God showed me some things. And it was clear that I was to share this with everybody that I could. So I'm going to be very brief and do a capsule of it. I talked about it back then, and I made videos about it. I sent them out all over, and people received it, and it was frightening to some. And to some, they even told me, they said, I know you're right. What you're saying is right. They would watch the videos and so, but they said, we can't bring ourselves to bring politics into the body of Christ. We can't mix politics into the church. That's what they told me. My response was, how can you not mix politics into the church? The church is part of a political system. In fact, our forefathers all said that if there was corruption in our halls of legislation, it was the fault of the pulpit. This is the last bastion of free speech right here. Our free speech is about gone. This is it right here. We have free speech. In 2020, they told us to follow what they said. So they shut down our schools. They shut down our nation. 316 days, California churches were shut down. No services. And they said, just do what you're told. People huddled in their homes in fear, not knowing what to do. Then they brought the mask things, and nobody would touch anybody else. They tell you, you can't shake hands with anyone. And the fist bump came real popular. No hugging, no hugging. Then they said, you can't sing in church. Churches are not allowed to sing, and you're not allowed to have corporate prayer. Isn't it amazing how that the churches were singled out? Now, you could go to parties in Los Angeles and Hollywood. You could go to a ball game. You could do those things, but not a church, just not a church. It's like that Red Lobster told my wife and I in Phoenix. I always ate the same thing, 35 years, and I ordered it that night in Phoenix. Been to that same Red Lobster, and she got her meal, and I said, I want the sailor's platter. I want the fish fried. I want the shrimp scampi cooked extra. I got it down, man. I knew what I wanted. Baked potato loaded with everything but sour cream. If you bring sour cream out here, no tip, and I'll never speak to you again. I know what I want. And so I said, and I want $1,000 dressing on my salad. He said, we don't have no $1,000 dressing. I said, why, man? How do you not have $1,000 dressing? I said, that's one of the big four. He says, we don't carry it no more. It's a Red Lobster policy. We don't carry it no more. I said, why? He said, COVID. COVID. I said, so if I eat ranch is all right. COVID don't like ranch. But no Thousand Island. Vinegar and oil. We got it, man. We got it. No Thousand Island. You eat Thousand Island, COVID's going home with you. So that's where we were. They tell you to do crazy things. Then we started having food shortages. We started having all that crazy stuff. 2021, it got worse, which we expected. But all of these silly things, and then we fought over the vaccine. What was happening during all of this time? America was being divided into 1,000 parts. Why is that significant? Because the Bible said a house divided against itself cannot stand. And so the devil, knowing his time is limited, knowing that he's limited on what he can do, decided, I can't harm these people because I don't have permission and I don't have the power. I can't strike them dead. The devil can't kill you. He can't give you a sickness. He can't do nothing to you unless God says okay. We don't have to fear the devil. We better fear God. That's who we need to fear. We fear God and keep His commandments. That's our whole duty right there. Fear God, keep His commandments. We abandoned that concept in 2020. We decided to follow what they were telling us to do. I'm going to follow a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or an independent politician. I'm going to follow one of them instead of following the Word of God. My God, that's like buying 5 coyotes to take care of your chickens. That doesn't even make sense. But we did it. We fell right in there with them. We said, okay, whatever y'all say. So you have to have services and split everybody up in the church. That don't work real well in Pentecostal churches. No. And you got to stay 6. At first they said 8 feet apart. Then they changed it and said 6. Oh, what'd you find out? That COVID doesn't have as big of legs as you thought? What happened? You know what it was? You know why they changed that? Go, you remember, I've been coming here now. This is my 17th year. I don't think I've ever said anything wrong from your pulpit. And I've always said, check me out. Have I not? Go check and see why they changed it from 8 feet to 6 feet. You'll find out it was because the satellites could not read what's going on when they're that far apart. It had nothing to do with catching the disease. Just like the masks that they prescribed had nothing to do with catching the disease. The N95 masks was the kind that real healthcare people used. The little cloth ones they give you, good luck. Just take a fishing net and strap it around your mouth. See, I'm not saying to them, you know, we're ministers. How long have you been in the ministry now, Brother Barnett? How many? 1978. I thought you said 70 years. I started saying, you're not telling the truth, brother. So that's 44 years. How many times have we been in a hospital? Way back then, before there was a computer, and they said, you got to put a gown and a mask on because this man's very, very sick. And not only do we want you to wear it for your safety, but for his safety. Did we ever question him? No. Why? We're not against that sort of thing. We don't want to walk in there and say, "Bless God, I ain't putting no mask on. I'm going to spit on the guy when I get in there. I'll show you who I am." People that do that, they want to make a statement. If you're making a statement, you've already failed God. Get out of the way. If you're not going to do this, that, or the other because in your heart you genuinely feel that God, and you've got convictions and you feel God doesn't want you to do that, God will honor that. But if you say, "Oh, bless God, I'll show them," and hike your pants up, they ain't going to make me do nothing. You got the wrong attitude, bud. You're going to lose. Attitude is everything. So I walk in Costco. They said, "You need a mask." I said, I don't like wearing the masks. And I said, it's not really a mandate that we wear a mask, and I prefer not to wear it because I had studied on them. And I said, after you wear a mask one time, it's no good. Why do you think you have these big containers in the hospital up and down the hallway, and they got skulls or crossbones on them and radioactive, and you're not supposed to go near them and all that? Then you'll see a couple of nurses walk by and drop their mask in there. You ever notice that? But they don't want to. Don't drop your mask. Keep it and wear it the next time. You see how silly that is? So I said, I prefer not to wear the mask. Well, if you're going to come in here, you've got to have a mask. So I turned around and I said, well, look, there are people who are just throwing them out in the parking lot. And they do. You ever notice that? You'll find a mask. I said, I'll get one of them, and I'll be right back. And he said, okay, that'll be fine. You know, the Bible said laughter doeth good like a medicine. I'm going to really have y'all laughing today. Isn't this funny? Amen. Isn't this funny? Never one time have I had to say, "Hey, God, you know, are you sure you got this down right? Are you sure we're doing the right thing?" He says, "Hey, everything you need to know is in that book. You go to that book. Everything you need to know is in there. I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. I'll never leave you at the altar. I'll never turn away from you. I'll never fail you. Whatever you need, I'll supply it. I am able to do exceedingly abundantly above anything that you could ask or think. I will never walk away from you. You don't have to trust in man.